Here are a couple of key guards with raised tabs. They're hot off the printer, and I'd like to point out several things to you. They're also raised tabs that will support, are designed to support rare earth magnets for attaching to the case. So let me point out a couple of things real quick. Different printers behave differently, different materials behave differently, but the plastics that are used by 3D printers often contract quite a bit as they cool, and sometimes it can even depend on when you take it off the printer, whether the printer's completely cooled down. You can get some warping in the plastic. This one right here is a little bit more warped, and if I just press here, you may be able to see how far it moves down. Just by pressing it. It's a little warped, it's a little humped in the middle, and I'm going to address that just by taking it and just bending it a little bit and holding it, kind of stretching that plastic. Put it back down again. We'll see how it's doing now. It's better. Try a little bit more. Pretty good. Probably good enough. This one she was allowed to come all the way down in temperature, but it's not the same key guard, so hard to know what caused it. This one's already pretty flat. We'll just leave it like it is. The other thing about raised tabs, they have to be printed with supports. So that's what all this garbage is here underneath the tab, and it should be possible to just pull them right off. You may need to do some cleanup on the underside, but just, again, it's a function of your slicer, how nicely it produces supports, and how easy they are to clean off. But it should be as simple as just popping them off. And I just use my fingernails to clean up any residue of little pieces of filament that may still be hanging on, because we'd like this to be as flat a surface as possible. All right, same thing is going to happen with this other one. Should just be able to snap them off and clean them up a bit. Sometimes they're on a little tighter than others. Timer just went off on the oven. Okay. So I want to also show you that there are basically two types of raised tabs. There's a raised tab that only ramps upward and then stops. There's another that ramps upward and then goes flat for a period of time. Those are the result of basically the shape of the case. And we'll look at those cases here next. So here's a screen protector that goes with the case, and closely we'll see that it ramps upward and then goes flat for the bulk of the screen protector. It's going to need a raised tab that looks the same way. It ramps upward for a short distance and then goes flat. This screen protector is just a ramp. There's no flat portion. It starts right at the screen and just ramps upward. And it will need raised tabs that do the same. They simply ramp. There's no flat part to the raised tab. Both of the key guards have pockets in the raised tab for magnets like these that are rare earth magnets. They're very strong. They're a little fragile at the same time, but very strong. And you kind of have to treat them carefully because when they're so strong, they'll slam into each other if you let them go, and they can crack each other. So this is the kind of magnet we're going to put inside the tab. There's a little pocket in there, and both of these key guards, every raised tab has a pocket for one of these magnets. On the raised tabs that ramp up and then go flat, there's a very obvious, maybe not on film, but there's a very obvious opening in the tab to insert the magnet. Turns out it's very easy to create a pocket on something that's printed horizontally, like the part of the tab where we're going to insert the magnet on this style of tab. But when it's not horizontal, the printer is going to struggle more with creating that pocket cleanly. And to address that, the design for this kind of pocket is a little different. Rather than having a real obvious opening, these have a tiny little opening on a very thin wall. And that tiny little opening is there for you to get access and clean out that wall. And we'll see that next. It's easier to do this when you're not standing on the far side of a camera, but what you'll need is some sort of pointed, thin tool. I have this needle nose pliers that are very pointed. You could use something like the tines of a fork or tine of a fork, or even a letter opener, maybe tweezers. But what you want to do is you want to insert the pointy end into that opening and just kind of pry open the plastic. And it's a little bit laborious, tedious task, but you can get in there. It's a very thin wall. And just open up that pocket. And I'll now pause and do this offline. So I've now cleaned out the plastic wall here, and we have an opening into the pocket on all four tabs. They've all four been cleaned out. And the opening is positioned toward the top of the key guard and away from the key guard user on the principle that out of sight is out of mind. It's the same on both, whether either of the tab designs, the openings are away from the user. Next thing we'll do is we'll prepare the magnets for insertion. So here are four magnets. We'll need 4 to go into the key guard itself and 4 to go onto the case. And these magnets have very strong north and south poles. So we're going to want to make sure we orient these magnets the same way in each of the pockets. And I'm going to do that by marking the top side. And it doesn't matter whether it's this way or this way, the other way. I just want to make sure that all magnets are marked on the same side so that I can insert them the same way into the pockets. So first thing I'll do is I'll just take a marker here, put a little dot on one side. Then I'm going to take this magnet, slide it off. You got to slide them off and set it aside. And we'll see them here in a second. I want to set them far enough apart they can't slam back together again, given that they're so strong. Keeping the stack in my hand the same way, put another dot, slide this one off, put another dot, slide it off, and one last dot. Set it aside. So I'm just keeping them apart from each other. One here, 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 and here. And now I'll take one of my key guards. I'll just use this one because it was on top. And I will ensure that that is facing upward as I slide it into the slot, that dot. Do that with each one. Like I said, it doesn't matter what's up, what's down, as long as the up is the same on all the magnets. And there's a reason for that. So be a little tighter than others. And I'm going to push them all the way in. Probably use a tool to do that. The magnets actually slide down inside the pocket. So there's a little bit of space between the edge of the pocket and the start of the magnet. That space is there so that you can take some glue of some kind. You can just use white glue and just squirt it down into that opening. These magnets went in very tightly, but you want to make sure that there's no way those magnets can come back out and be adjusted. So just squirt a little glue down in there, let it dry, and they won't come out. Next thing I'm going to do is prepare the case. In this example, I'm using just the screen protector, but the point is the same. Prepare the case to mount the magnets. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a pencil and I'm just going to mark the edges of the tabs. Now remember, the magnet sits inside this space. It's not the full length, but this little mark will come in handy when putting the the double-sided tape in place. So I'm sure you can't see those marks, but I can. And next, I'll put some double-sided tape between those marks. Oh, I'm going to have to take it off the roll. So another pause. Okay, finally the dispenser's ready to go. I'll just take a small piece of tape and stick it down between right up against this edge and down between the pieces, between the markings. And again, I'll do this offline. All right, so the tape is in place. I didn't spend any time making sure that the tape was just the right length. I'm going to address that at the end. So I've pulled off 4 additional magnets, and I don't have to mark these at all. They'll be happy to align themselves properly. And I'll just start setting them on the tabs, on the underside of the tabs. If it pushes away, that means you turn it over. Just gotta set them down. They really want to be together. Like I said, they'll align themselves. Okay. Now, this step is actually to attach these magnets to the double-sided tape. And what I'll do is I'll place the key guard in to the opening at the bottom and just let it fall down. And then press on the tabs. The double-sided tape is very strong. And in a second, the magnets will stick to the tape better than they stick to the other magnet. And there they are, and they're right in place. They're nicely aligned. So next step is just to clean up a lot of that excess double-sided tape. And I'll just use an X-Acto knife to do that. Remember, you're only cutting through tape, which is very thin, so you don't have to press very hard. Just enough to kind of score it. Just run it along the side of the magnet. Just kind of score the tape. No reason to cut into the key guard at all. And then we'll lift off the excess tape. And we'll do that offline. All right, the magnets are in place. The extra tape has been cleaned up. And I cut it pretty close. I'm not sure it had to be that close. Mostly just to keep things from collecting dirt. And the magnets are held on pretty well this way. If I really insisted on picking at it, trying to get them off, I probably could. But if you have a student, client, whatever, who's that interested in picking at things, this whole solution isn't going to work anyway. So now we can just put the key guard in place. It's held on really well. And the most efficient way to get it off is pick it off from a side. But it falls in place really nicely because the magnets make it fall into place. The advantage to making sure that the magnets are all oriented the same way in the top is that I can rotate this key guard and it still fits just as nicely. You may need to rotate it if for some reason, because of the handle on the case or whatever, you needed to rotate the case for different orientations. It's nice to know that the key guard will go on and stay on in all orientations. That's only possible because the magnets all have the same orientation, so that when I rotate it, I don't end up pushing the key guard away on one side or one corner. That process is exactly the same for this style raised tab. We're still going to insert it through the openings. We're still going to go through all the trouble to make sure the magnets are oriented the same way. And we'll just put our tape on this surface and aligned with the edge of the rigid part of the screen protector. But the process is exactly the same, and I'll do that offline. All right, the magnets are in place, magnets are inserted, and there it goes. Inserted in either direction.